The top 5 secrets about the Holy Bible. The first biblical stories were passed down orally and only written down later by various authors. Most biblical scholars believe that the Bible of Genesis was the first book to be written down. This would have happened around 1450 BC to 1400 BC. That's about 3,400 years ago. It's so shocking that this secret has been hidden for this long. Well, let's dive into it. Number 1. 16 books was removed from the Bible. In the 16th century, Martin Luther argued that many of the received texts of the Bible lacked authority over the gospel and therefore proposed removing a number of books from the Bible. These books contains a lot of hidden truths and stories about the history of humanity, especially the book of Enoch, which describes how Enoch walked with the archangels who took him up to the heavens and revealed to him the secrets of the universe and the future of mankind. It also tells us that the archangels had intimacy with humans and gave birth to giants just like Goliath. Oh yes, we can picture a lot of evidence on ancient photos. The mind is useless when the eyes is blind. It is shown clearly that giants once existed. Well, this is just a tip of what you're about to know today. Number 2. The Bible is a metaphor and has occult meanings. The pineal gland or the third eye was literally explained at the book of Genesis, chapter 32, verse 30, which says, "For I have seen God face to face. My life is preserved," and Jacob called the place Peniel. Wow. Isn't that interesting? Well, that's not all of it. The book of Matthew chapter 6 verse 22 of the King James Version says this: "The light of the body is the eye. If therefore the eye be single, thy body shall be full of light." I guess you now know why the eyes has to be single to experience that. The activation of the pineal gland brings light throughout the body, and then you experience heaven here on earth. Well, let's continue. Jesus, being the Son of God, is a metaphor for the actual sun you see in the sky. This is why we always see sun behind the head of Jesus Christ, and also why Christians goes to church on Sunday. Jesus' death is also a metaphor. Jesus died at the age of 33, representing the 33 vertebrae that interlocks the human spine. Jesus' 12 disciples is a double metaphor, which represents, firstly, the death of Jesus Christ led the disciples to go and spread the gospel to the world, the same way the spine leads to the skull. Inside the skull is what? The human brain. The skull has 12 cranial nerves that controls the function of your consciousness. These 12 cranial nerves uses neurotransmitters in the brain to spread the message of the mind, where your body functions and senses. Second metaphor. The 12 disciples of Jesus represents the 12 months of the year and the 12 astrological signs that surrounds the sun, which explains the personality of all humans according to their birth months. Third metaphor. The sun enters into each sign of the zodiac at 30 degrees. Also, the Son of God also started his ministry at the age of 30. Isn't that interesting? Number 3. There is magic in the Bible. Psalms chapter 91 verse 5 to 6 says, "You shall not be afraid of the terror of the night, nor of the pestilence that stalks in darkness, nor of the destruction and sudden death that surprise and lay waste at noonday. The terror of the night, the arrow that flies, the pestilence of darkness." In the Hebrew, these are not just nouns or adjectives. These are names of Canaanite gods. Reshep was a Canaanite god who was an archer. The terror of the night was a demon named Lilith. And pestilence was another Canaanite god that made people sick. So yes, Psalm 91 is a magical charm or a spell against demons. Number 4. Some practices, affirmations and stories in the Bible was stolen in Africa. The story of Horus, who is a familiar ancient Egyptian god, was written down 5,000 years ago. This happens to be almost the same story of Jesus, which was written just 2,000 years ago. Well, I don't think that's a coincidence. The 10 Commandments were directly copied word to word from the divine principle of Ma'at of the ancient Kemet, which we now know as the Egyptians. These 42 principles was never a commandment. It was only an affirmation. The marine rituals was practiced in ancient Kemet for thousands of years before the Bible was recorded. I don't think it's a coincidence that baptism is also practiced the same way. The story of Adam and Eve was created from a story of Sa and Seth of the Egyptians. A history researcher had this to say:
"And knowledge and wisdom still there in the West Bank and the Valley of the Kings and the Ramessean temple still there. From the tree of not of good and evil, but the tree of divine knowledge and life has been corrupted to this story right here." We got it carved in stone. We're the divine couple who were created simultaneously, and that was a Sar and a Set. Had nothing to do with no Adam and Eve. That's a corruption of our story. And here's the story that Asar had an evil brother, yes, named Set, and was jealous of him and got 72 conspirators to kill him. Many versions of the story. Here you see the warring twins going on. Just like you see in the Bible, they created the Cain and Abel from Asar and Set. Brothers and sisters, and now they're going to tell us the Cain and Abel story. And look, even in that story, the story gets messed up because there's only Adam and Eve on the planet, is that right? And only people, is that right? And they have a son named Cain and Abel, is that right? And Cain kills Abel and goes out to the land of Nod and finds himself a what? The story's already messed up. But that's a corruption of our ancestral story of the divine couple and our Zep-Tepi, or first time of creation of Asar and a Set. And then they're going to tell us in the storyline that this is 4004 BC. Wait a minute. Let's go to our ancestors' chronology. 4000 BC, there's no Adam and Eve in our story. We see Norma. We see Horm Akhet, the creation, and the creation story that I talked about. No Adam and Eve, no Hebrew story did not exist yet. In fact, let's go and see that this right here says green, no direct archaeological evidence. The red says archaeological evidence. Well, let's look at this now. And it says right here, Abraham, green. What does green say? No direct archaeological evidence according to Time, December 18, 1995. Isaac, green. No direct archaeological evidence according to Time, December 18, 1995. Jacob, green. No direct archaeological evidence. Joseph, green. No direct archaeological evidence. Period of the Exodus, green. No direct archaeological evidence. Moses, green. No direct archaeological evidence. Joshua, green. No direct archaeological evidence. Ramsey, or its proper name, Ramesu, red, archaeological evidence. But why you have the scroll half open here? Because there's some other story in there they don't want you to know. Let's go back to the map. Here's Abraham way down here. If you open the scroll up, this is what you would come to. You would see Khufu, the builder of the Great Pyramid. You would see Zoser-Neterket, who built the first stone pyramid. He got his grandmaster Imhotep to do it for him. You would see Horm Akhet, but yet Abraham's way down here. That's why the scroll, brothers and sisters, that's why the scroll, as you see it right here, is not all the way open. Because if it was all the way open, you would in fact see your story that's right in this chronological story.
Well, I guess that said it all. Number 5. Was Jesus mentioned in the Old Testament? Well, he wasn't. In my next video, I'll be sharing the top 5 secrets why Jesus wasn't mentioned in the Old Testament. Like, subscribe, and share to your family and friends.